The deep space scanner beeped 3 times in rapid succession, making Dr. Rodriguez look up from her coffee cup. She had been studying bacterial samples for 6 hours straight, and the sound meant something interesting had finally appeared on their sensors. The research vessel Meridian had been floating through empty space for 2 weeks, collecting data on cosmic radiation and stellar formations in the Tau Ceti system. "Williams, you need to see this," she called to the ship's commander, who was reviewing supply reports at the navigation console. The scanner showed a vessel of unknown design drifting about 50,000 kilometers away. Its hull reflected their probe lights in strange patterns, almost like it was made of living tissue mixed with metal and crystal. Williams moved to the main display and studied the readings. The ship was roughly the same size as the Meridian, but its shape reminded him of a deep-sea creature more than any spacecraft he had ever seen. Long, flowing sections curved around a central body that pulsed with soft blue light. Atmosphere was venting from several spots along its surface, creating small clouds of frozen gas that sparkled in the starlight. "That's definitely not human." "Technology," Rodriguez said, pointing at the energy readings. "Look at these power signatures. They're using some kind of biological component in their systems. The whole ship seems to be part machine, part living organism." Commander Foster joined them at the display, his expression cautious. "Could be a trap. We've never encountered another intelligent species before, and the first one we find just happens to be disabled right in our path." Williams considered this possibility. The ship did appear to be in genuine distress, with multiple hull breaches and what looked like emergency lights flashing along its outer surface, if this was indeed their first contact with alien life. They had a choice to make. They could follow standard protocol and maintain distance while reporting back to Earth, or they could attempt to render aid to what appeared to be fellow travelers in trouble. "I'm picking up transmission attempts," Rodriguez announced, adjusting the communication array. "It's not directed at us, but they're definitely trying to send some kind of distress signal. The universal translator is having trouble with the language, but I'm getting fragments about system failures and life support problems." The alien vessel's lights suddenly dimmed, and the atmospheric venting increased. Whatever was happening over there, it was getting worse. Williams made his decision quickly. "Rodriguez, prepare emergency oxygen supplies and basic medical equipment. Foster, ready the shuttle bay." "We're going to help them," Foster shook his head. "Sir, we have no idea what we're dealing with. They could be hostile, or their biology might be completely incompatible with ours. We don't even know if they breathe oxygen." "Then we'll find out," Williams replied. "If someone found us drifting with life support failing, I'd want them to at least try to help. Besides, look at their ship design. Those curves, the way it's integrated with biological systems, it suggests a species that works with nature rather than against it. That doesn't sound like the profile of an aggressive warrior race." Rodriguez began gathering supplies from the medical bay. She packed basic atmosphere processors, emergency oxygen canisters, and standard first aid equipment. She also grabbed several nutrition bars and water pouches, thinking the aliens might need sustenance if they had been stranded for a while. The universal translator device went into her kit as well, even though it was still struggling with the alien language. Patterns dot as they prepared to launch the shuttle. The main screen showed the alien ship's condition continuing to deteriorate. More lights were failing, and the atmospheric leaks were becoming larger. Time was running out for whoever was aboard that vessel? "I'm also packing some of our standard emergency rations," Rodriguez said, loading sealed food packages into the supply containers. "If they're carbon-based life forms, they might be able to process some of our nutrients. At the very least, it shows peaceful intentions." Foster remained skeptical but followed orders, preparing the shuttle for launch. "I still think we should establish communication first. Find out what they want, what they need, who they are." Williams nodded. "We'll try to communicate once we're closer. Right now, they might not have enough power to receive our transmissions." "Clearly. Besides, actions speak louder than words. If we show up with aid and supplies, they'll understand our intentions pretty quickly." The shuttle launched smoothly, carrying the three humans toward the mysterious alien vessel. As they approached, more details of the ship became visible. The hull was definitely partly organic, with what looked like a skeleton structure covered in a translucent membrane. The blue light seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, and there were several appendages that reminded Williams of tentacles or roots extending from the main body. "That's beautiful," Rodriguez whispered, studying the alien design. "It's like they grew their ship instead of building it." The integration between biological and mechanical systems is incredible. They docked with the alien vessel using magnetic clamps attaching to what appeared to be an airlock structure. The shuttle's sensors confirmed that there was a breathable atmosphere on the other side, though it was rapidly becoming contaminated with what looked like carbon dioxide buildup. Williams checked his equipment one more time. In addition to the emergency supplies, he had packed several protein bars in his personal kit, thinking they might serve as a gesture of goodwill. The bars were wrapped in clear packaging that showed their contents, and he figured any intelligent species would recognize them as food rather than weapons. "Ready?" he asked his team. Foster nodded grimly while Rodriguez smiled with excitement. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries, their first meeting with another intelligent species. As the airlock cycled and the door opened, William stepped forward with his hands clearly visible, holding a supply container in one hand and a protein bar in the other. The corridor beyond was dimly lit and filled with a sweet, ozone-like smell. Strange organic shapes lined the walls, and the floor felt slightly springy underfoot. Somewhere ahead, they could hear what sounded like voices speaking in rapid, musical tones. William smiled broadly and called out in the friendliest voice he could manage, "Hello there. We're here to help." The alien crew huddled in their ship's central chamber, their tall, elegant forms trembling with terror. Harmony Keeper Lux pressed her translucent hands against the organic walls, feeling the ship's distress through her fingertips. The vessel they called home was dying, its living systems failing one by one as the cascade of malfunctions spread throughout its biological matrix. "The predators have boarded us," whispered Songweaver Vel, her three eyes wide with fear as she monitored the ship's sensory network. "They move through our corridors like hunters carrying unknown devices." Lux felt her skin shift to a deep purple, the color of extreme anxiety among her people. The collective had evolved on a world where showing teeth meant aggression, where forward-facing eyes indicated a predator species, and where the ability to consume varied organic matter marked a creature as a dangerous omnivore. The beings that had just entered their ship displayed all these terrifying characteristics. "They showed their dental weapons when they spoke," Vel continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "And their eyes focus like those of the great stalkers from our homeworld. They hunt by sight, Harmony Keeper. They are apex predators." The ship's bio-neural network transmitted images of the three humans moving through the corridors. Lux watched in horror as the lead creature held some kind of rectangular object in its manipulator appendage, occasionally examining it with those terrifying forward-facing eyes. The object was wrapped in a transparent membrane, revealing its contents to be some kind of processed organic matter. "It carries a trophy," Lux realized, her skin shifting to an even deeper shade of purple. A preserved piece of its previous victims, displayed as a warning to new prey. The humans' voices echoed through the ship's acoustic systems, their sounds harsh and alien compared to the musical tones of the collective. Even worse, the creatures seemed to be moving with casual confidence, as if they owned the vessel they had just invaded. To the frightened aliens, this behavior indicated a species so powerful and feared that they felt no need for caution. "They bear gifts," Songweaver Vel observed, tracking the humans' progress through the ship's sensory network. "This is how the Deathworlders operate. They offer false kindness before they strike." Lux had studied the ancient texts that spoke of such creatures, beings from harsh worlds who had evolved beyond the need for honest communication. They would approach their victims with offerings of food or assistance, lulling them into a false sense of security before revealing their true nature. The fact that these predators had appeared just as their ship was failing could not be coincidence. Prepare the emergency beacon, Lux commanded, her voice steady despite her terror. All of the collective must know about this encounter. These beings are far more dangerous than we initially calculated. The humans drew closer to the central chamber, their footsteps creating vibrations that the ship's living hull transmitted directly to its crew. Lux could feel their approach like the tremors of an earthquake, each step bringing the predators nearer to their hiding place. They move with purpose, Vel noted, her song voice breaking with stress. They know exactly where we are. They can sense our location through methods we do not understand. When the chamber door dilated open, the three humans stepped through with their hands visible and their faces arranged in those terrifying dental displays. The lead creature held up the wrapped object and made sounds that the ship's translation system struggled to process. The words came through as something like greeting, food, offering, peace, but the tone and body language suggested something far more sinister. Lux pressed herself against the far wall, her skin now a deep black that indicated mortal terror. The human's eyes focused on her with predatory intensity, and it stepped forward while extending the mysterious package. The gesture was clearly ritualistic, perhaps some kind of ceremonial offering that preceded the hunt. "Stay back," Lux managed to whisper, her voice barely functioning. "We understand your meaning. We submit to your superiority." The humans exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable to the terrified aliens. The lead creature made more sounds, gesturing with its free hand toward the ship's damaged systems. To Lux, this looked like the predator was claiming ownership of the vessel, pointing out the specific areas where its kind had somehow sabotaged their life support. "They caused our systems to fail," Vel realized, her skin cycling through rapid color changes. "They damaged us from a distance, then approached with offers of aid. This is how they hunt entire starships." The human held out the package again, this time making softer sounds that almost seemed pleading. But Lux knew better than to trust such obvious deception. The creature was clearly growing impatient with their lack of response, and its companions were beginning to move around the chamber, examining the ship's organic systems with those terrible focusing eyes. "They study us," Lux whispered to Vel. "They learn our weaknesses so they can exploit them with others of our kind." The emergency beacon activated, sending a burst transmission across local space. The message was simple but urgent. Encountered Death World predators. Species displays hunting behavior through false gifts. Approach with extreme caution. They hunt by offering unknown substances, avoid at all costs. The humans seemed to notice the beacon's activation, their heads turning toward the communication panel with those predatory eyes. The lead creature made more sounds, holding up the package as if offering it in exchange for ending their transmission. The implication was clear: accept their gift or face the consequences. "They demand submission," Lux translated, her voice shaking. "They want us to consume their offering as a sign of surrender." But the beacon was already transmitting, carrying its warning across the trade networks of the collective. Within hours, the message would reach dozens of species, warning them about the terrifying new predators that had emerged from the unknown regions of space. The humans continued to stand there, holding their mysterious packages and displaying their dental weapons, apparently content to wait for a response. "They are patient hunters," Vel observed, her skin settling into a dull gray of resignation. "They have time to wait for our surrender." The ship's systems continued to fail around them, but Lux no longer cared about the mechanical problems. They had encountered something far more dangerous than simple equipment failure. They had met a species that hunted not through violence, but through psychological manipulation and false kindness. The fact that these creatures appeared helpful made them infinitely more terrifying than any honest predator. As the beacon continued its transmission, Lux could only hope that other species would heed their warning about the smiling Deathworlders who offered gifts to their victims. The message spread through the galactic communication network like wildfire through dry grass. Trade stations across 17 star systems received the warning from the collective's emergency beacon, and within hours every major species in the sector knew about the terrifying, New predators that had emerged from the unknown regions of space. Ambassador Thek of the Mantis Coalition stood before the emergency council session at Proxima Trade Hub, her forearms gesticulating wildly. As she read from the transmission, "They call themselves humans and they hunt through deception. They approach disabled vessels with offers of assistance, then present their victims with unknown substances wrapped in transparent membranes." The council chamber erupted in nervous chatter as representatives from dozens of species processed this information. The avian hegemony's delegate, Ambassador Kree, ruffled her feathers in distress. "This matches the ancient warnings from the Forbidden's archives. There are legends of Deathworld species that defeat their enemies through false kindness rather than honest combat. The collective's report indicates these beings display their dental weapons as a greeting." That continued, her voice shaking. "They show predatory focus patterns and carry trophies of previous victims. Most disturbing of all, they seem to possess technology that can disable starships from a distance." The silicon-based architect's representative, a crystalline being known as Facet Prime, resonated with harmonic frequencies that translated as deep concern. "If they can attack ship systems remotely, no vessel is safe. We must establish defensive protocols immediately." Within hours of the council session, emergency bulletins went out across the trade networks. The hegemony recalled all their merchant vessels from the outer rim sectors. The Mantis Coalition established new security protocols requiring all ships to travel in armed convoys. 3 different species declared their home systems off-limits to any vessel that might have encountered the humans. The panic escalated when a freighter captain reported seeing a human ship in the Beta Centauri system. The vessel had approached his cargo hauler and attempted to establish communication, but the captain had immediately activated his emergency jump drive and fled to the nearest station. His description of the encounter sent shockwaves through the galactic community. "They hailed us with sounds that seemed friendly," the captain reported to station security. "But when I magnified their transmission, I could see their faces clearly. They were showing their teeth in obvious threat displays, and their eyes were focused like hunters tracking prey. When I began evasive maneuvers, they didn't pursue aggressively. They just watched us flee as if they were studying our escape patterns." This behavior pattern terrified the galactic community even more than outright aggression would have. The humans weren't acting like typical predators who relied on speed and violence. Instead, they seemed to be conducting psychological warfare, studying their potential victims while projecting an image of false friendliness. The situation grew worse when reports came in from the outer colonies. A human vessel had encountered a disabled mining platform and had somehow managed to board it despite the crew's attempts to seal their airlocks. The miners had been found days later, unharmed but speaking in hushed tones about the terrifying creatures who had shared their food supplies. "They gave us rectangular objects wrapped in shiny material," one miner reported. "When we refused to touch them, they consumed the substances themselves, apparently demonstrating that they were not immediately poisonous. But this was clearly a trick to make us lower our guard." The miners described how the humans had smiled constantly, showing their dental weapons while making soft sounds that might have been some form of hypnotic conditioning. Most disturbing of all, the humans had left behind several containers of the mysterious substances, apparently expecting the miners to consume them after their departure. "They're playing with us," declared General Raz of the warrior caste. "This is how apex predators behave when they're completely confident in their superiority. They don't need to kill us immediately because they know we cannot escape or resist them." The fear reached its peak when a human colony ship was spotted in the Vega system. The vessel was massive, clearly designed for long-term space travel, and it was heading directly toward the populated worlds of the inner system. When the System Defense Force attempted to intercept it, the humans broadcast what appeared to be a greeting. The transmission showed dozens of the creatures, all displaying their dental weapons in synchronized threat displays. They were holding various packages and containers, apparently showing off their collection of mysterious substances. Most terrifying of all, there were smaller humans visible in the background, suggesting that this was a breeding population rather than just a military force. "They're not just hunters," Ambassador Kree announced to the emergency session. "They're colonizers. They're bringing their offspring to establish permanent settlements in our region of space." The galactic community's response was immediate and decisive. Trade routes were abandoned, communication networks were restricted, and military forces were placed on high alert. The Mantis Coalition began constructing defensive installations around their core worlds, while the hegemony established quarantine zones around any system where humans had been spotted. The Silicon-based architects took the most extreme measures, completely withdrawing from all contact with organic species and retreating to their hidden fortress worlds. Their final transmission was brief and ominous. "The gift givers have arrived. All organic life must prepare for psychological subjugation." Meanwhile, the humans continued their seemingly innocent activities, completely unaware of the panic they were causing. They approached stranded vessels with offers of assistance, shared their food supplies with anyone who seemed hungry, and generally behaved like the friendly explorers they believed themselves to be. But to the galactic community, every act of kindness was interpreted as evidence of sophisticated psychological warfare. When a human ship shared coffee with a robotic probe, the incident was analyzed by military intelligence as an attempt to introduce mind-altering substances into mechanical systems. When humans offered technical assistance to a damaged freighter, the interaction was classified as reconnaissance gathering for future conquests. The terror reached absurd levels when a human merchant vessel began broadcasting what appeared to be entertainment programs. The transmissions showed humans engaged in various activities, including the consumption of different types of food and beverages. To the watching aliens, these programs looked like instructional videos demonstrating the effects of various mind control substances on human subjects. "They're showing us what they plan to do to us," whispered a collective analyst. "They're demonstrating the complete mental domination they can achieve through their chemical weapons." As the panic spread throughout the galaxy, the humans remained blissfully unaware that they had become the most feared species in known space. They continued to explore, to offer help to anyone who needed it, and to share their snacks with curious aliens. Each act of kindness only confirmed the galaxy's worst fears about the terrifying predators, who conquered through false friendship and mysterious gifts. Admiral Hayes stood in the Situation Room aboard Earth Defense Station Alpha, staring at the holographic display showing human colonies across the frontier. Red warning indicators flashed at dozens of locations, marking systems where contact had been lost with alien civilizations. The reports flooding in from the outer colonies painted a picture that made no sense whatsoever. "They're running from us," reported Colonel Brooks, reading from the latest intelligence briefing. "Every single alien species we've encountered has either fled immediately or gone into complete communication blackout. The few that haven't disappeared entirely seem to be leaving tribute." Hayes examined the data streams coming in from various frontier stations. Near the Kepler system, a human research vessel had discovered a cache of rare minerals floating in space, apparently abandoned by fleeing alien traders. Similar discoveries were being reported throughout human space, as if entire civilizations were dumping their most valuable resources and running away. The Centauri colony reported finding a whole shipment of processed foods just floating in their asteroid belt. Brooks continued. "The packaging is alien, but the contents appear to be some kind of luxury consumables. The colonists think it might be a gift, but why would aliens give us presents and then disappear?" Dr. Kelly, Earth's leading expert on xenopsychology, had been studying the pattern of alien behavior for weeks. She stood before the tactical display, pointing to various incident reports. "This isn't random panic. There's a systematic pattern here. Every alien species that encounters us follows the same behavioral sequence: initial contact, rapid withdrawal, and then resource abandonment." The situation had become so widespread that human merchant vessels were reporting difficulties finding anyone to trade with. Entire space stations had gone dark when human ships approached. and established trade routes were being abandoned by alien traders who had previously been eager to exchange goods and services. "It's like they're afraid of us," Hayes murmured, studying the pattern of withdrawals. "But we haven't done anything threatening. Our first contact protocols are specifically designed to be non-aggressive." Kelly nodded grimly. "That's what makes this so puzzling. According to all our behavioral models, our approach should be reassuring to most species. We offer aid, we share resources, we maintain open body language. These are universal friendship signals across virtually every social species we've studied." The mystery deepened when reports came in from the agricultural colony on New Montana. A human transport had encountered an alien freighter with engine trouble and had offered assistance. As per standard protocols, the alien crew had accepted the help, but their behavior had been extremely strange throughout the entire interaction. "They kept staring at our faces," reported Transport Officer Davis via subspace communication, "specifically at our mouths. Every time we smiled or spoke, they seemed to become more agitated. We shared some of our emergency rations with them, thinking they might be hungry after being stranded, but they treated the food packages like they were explosive devices. The aliens had accepted the food, but only after what appeared to be some kind of lengthy ritual consultation among their crew. They had handled the packages with extreme care, as if they expected them to be dangerous, and had insisted on scanning them with multiple instruments before allowing them aboard their ship. When we offered them coffee, they practically had a panic attack," Davis continued. "They kept making these high-pitched sounds that their translator couldn't process. We thought maybe they were allergic to caffeine, so we tried offering them fruit juice instead, but that made them even more upset." Kelly studied the interaction reports, noting similar patterns across multiple encounters. "They're not treating our food offerings as gifts. They're treating them as threats." "But why would they think our emergency rations are dangerous?" The answer came from an unexpected source. The Deep Space Monitoring Station at Titan had been intercepting alien communications for months, and their xenolinguistics team had finally cracked enough of the language patterns to understand what the aliens were saying about humans. "You're going to want to hear this," announced Dr. Park, the station's chief linguist. Her voice came through the CUM system with barely concealed amazement. "We've been listening to their emergency broadcasts, and they're not just afraid of us. They think we're some kind of apex predator species that hunts through psychological manipulation." The Situation Room fell silent as Park continued her explanation. "According to their communications, they believe we're so advanced and dangerous that we don't need to use direct violence. Instead, we supposedly defeat our enemies by offering them mysterious substances that cause mental domination or physical transformation." Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. "They think our food is some kind of weapon?" "Worse than that," Park replied. "They think we're so confident in our superiority that we casually demonstrate our power by consuming these substances ourselves. From their perspective, when we eat a protein bar in front of them, we're showing off our immunity to our own chemical weapons." The implications were staggering. Every act of human kindness, every offer of assistance, every shared meal had been interpreted as evidence of humanity's terrifying capabilities. The aliens weren't running from human aggression. They were fleeing from what they perceived as the galaxy's most sophisticated predator species. This explains the resource abandonment, Kelly realized. They're not leaving gifts, they're paying tribute. They think we're so powerful that we allow lesser species to survive as long as they provide us with valuable resources. The situation became even more complex when reports came in from the holiday transport that had been carrying families to the New Geneva colony. The ship had encountered a disabled alien vessel and had followed standard humanitarian protocols, offering emergency supplies and assistance. But the aliens' reaction had been unlike anything previously recorded. The alien crew seemed to think our children were some kind of advanced biological weapon, reported the transport's medical officer. When little Emma offered one of her cookies to an alien child, the entire crew went into what looked like a defensive formation. They were protecting their youngster from a 6-year-old girl with a chocolate chip cookie. The medical officers' report continued with growing bewilderment. The alien adults kept making these complex vocalizations that their translator rendered as something like pleasure, toxin, youth, corruption warning. They seemed to believe that our children were somehow more dangerous than our adults. Kelly studied this new information with growing understanding. They've developed a completely inverted interpretation of our social behaviors. They see our protective instincts toward children as evidence that human offspring are weapons in training. They think we're so advanced that we use our young as psychological warfare agents. The scope of the misunderstanding became clear when intelligence reports revealed that several alien species had completely evacuated their border systems, leaving behind entire colonies and industrial complexes. The exodus was so complete that human explorers were finding ghost towns on worlds that had been thriving just months before. They're not just avoiding us, Hayes realized. They're running from the entire region of space where humans have been active. We've become the galactic equivalent of a plague, and they're treating any system we visited as contaminated. The final piece of the puzzle came from the merchant vessel Lucky Strike, which had been trying to establish trade relationships with alien species near the outer rim. The ship's captain reported finding an automated beacon broadcasting a message in multiple alien languages. The translation is rough, but the meaning is clear, the captain reported. It's a warning beacon telling other species to avoid this entire sector. According to the message, this region is now controlled by the Givers of Unknown Gifts, described as a species so dangerous that they defeat enemies through kindness rather than violence. As the full scope of the misunderstanding became apparent, Hayes realized that humanity faced a crisis unlike any in their history. They had become the most feared species in the galaxy not through conquest or aggression, but through the simple act of trying to be helpful neighbors. Their greatest strength had become their most terrifying characteristic, and the galaxy was fleeing from their relentless kindness. The small alien child drifted alone in the escape pod, her opalescent skin shifting through colors that indicated confusion and fear. Her family had been forced to abandon their transport when the warning came through about human ships in the sector, but in the chaos of evacuation, 7-year-old Nim had been left behind when her pod's navigation system malfunctioned. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, child psychologist aboard the colony ship New Hope, spotted the pod during routine sensor sweeps. The ship was carrying 300 families to establish a new settlement in the Perseus Arm, but they had encountered nothing but empty space and abandoned alien outposts throughout their journey. It's just a child, Mitchell reported to the bridge after analyzing the pod's contents. The life support is failing, and the occupant appears to be unconscious. We need to bring her aboard immediately. The rescue operation proceeded smoothly, with the medical team adapting one of their emergency chambers to accommodate the alien child's atmospheric requirements. When Nim awakened, she found herself surrounded by the nightmare creatures her people had warned her about, beings with forward-facing eyes and dental weapons prominently displayed, but instead of the terror she expected, the creatures seemed genuinely concerned about her welfare. The female with the soft voice offered her water in a clear container, and when Nim hesitantly accepted, nothing terrible happened. The water was clean and refreshing, with no signs of the mind control substances her people had described. "Hello, little one," Mitchell said gently, using the universal translator to communicate. "You're safe now. We're going to help you find your family." Nim studied the human's face, noting the way the creature's mouth curved upward in what she had been taught was a threat display. But the human's eyes were soft and kind, and her voice carried none of the harsh tones that predators used when asserting dominance. When the human offered her a small piece of fruit, Nim's natural curiosity overcame her learned fear. The fruit was sweet and juicy, unlike anything from her homeworld. More importantly, consuming it caused no ill effects beyond a pleasant taste. As hours passed, Nim began to realize that everything her people believed about humans might be wrong. "They're not hunters," she whispered to herself in her native language, watching as human children played in the ship's recreation areas, They're just people. The breakthrough came when 8-year-old Tommy Chun found Nim sitting alone in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars without any of the complex fears that plagued the adults of both species. Tommy simply sat down beside her and offered half of his sandwich. "You look hungry," he said through the translator. "My mom packed too much food anyway." Nim accepted the sandwich and discovered that it contained flavors she had never experienced before. The bread was soft and warm, the filling was savory and satisfying, and sharing a meal with the human child felt completely natural. For the first time since her rescue, she allowed herself to relax. "My name is Tommy," the boy said, pointing to himself. "What's your name?" "Nim," she replied, surprised by how easy it was to communicate with this young human. "Are you really a predator species?" Tommy looked confused. "A what? I don't know what that means. I'm just a kid." "Want to see my rock collection?" Over the following days, Nim spent time with the human children, learning their games and sharing stories about her homeworld. She discovered that humans were curious and playful, much like the children of her own species. They asked questions about her color-changing skin, shared their toys willingly, and seemed genuinely interested in her well-being. The human adults were equally puzzling. They checked on her regularly, ensuring that she was comfortable and healthy, but they never demanded anything in return. Dr. Mitchell spent hours teaching her about human culture, explaining that the dental displays were actually expressions of happiness called smiles. "When humans are pleased or friendly, they show their teeth," Mitchell explained. "It's the opposite of a threat. It means we're happy to see you." Nim practiced smiling, discovering that the expression felt surprisingly natural. She began to understand that much of what her people considered threatening behavior was actually how humans expressed positive emotions. The forward-facing eyes that seemed so predatory were simply how humans looked at things they found interesting. The situation became critical when Nim's family finally tracked down their lost child. The collective had been monitoring human communications, and when they detected their daughter's biosignature aboard a human vessel, they mounted a desperate rescue mission. The alien ship approached the New Hope cautiously, broadcasting surrender messages and offering tribute in exchange for their child's safe return. But when the human captain responded with offers of medical assistance and refreshments for the rescue team, the aliens nearly fled in panic. "They're using our child as bait," Harmony Keeper Lux transmitted to her crew. "They want to draw us closer so they can deploy their chemical weapons on our entire family." But Nim had learned enough about human communication protocols to intervene. She broadcast her own message to her family, speaking in rapid, excited tones about her experiences aboard the human ship. "They're not predators," she told her parents. "They're kind and gentle. They shared their food with me and they taught me their games. The young ones are just like us, curious and playful. The adults take care of everyone, not just their own offspring." Her parents listened in amazement as Nim described human behavior from a child's perspective, free from the fears and prejudices that had shaped adult interpretations. She explained how humans smiled when they were happy, how they offered food as a gesture of friendship, and how they cared for anyone who needed help. "Show them," Nim suggested. "Come aboard and see for yourself." The first meeting between human and alien adults was tense, with the collective representatives expecting to be subjected to psychological manipulation at any moment. But Dr. Mitchell's calm demeanor and genuine concern for Nim's well-being gradually put them at ease. "We've been taking care of your daughter," Mitchell explained. "She's a remarkable child, very intelligent and brave. We've learned so much from her about your people." When Mitchell offered the alien parents coffee, they accepted, with trembling hands, expecting to be subjected to some form of mind control. Instead, they discovered a warm, stimulating beverage that helped them relax and focus. The humans' casual consumption of the same substance proved that it was not a weapon. "This is how you hunt," Lux said wonderingly. "Through kindness and generosity, you make your victims want to trust you." Mitchell looked confused. "Hunt? We're not hunting anyone. We're just trying to be good neighbors. When someone needs help, we offer assistance. When someone is hungry, we share our food." It's how civilized beings should behave. The alien parents spent 3 days aboard the New Hope, observing human behavior and gradually understanding that their fears had been based on misinterpretation. They watched human families interact with genuine affection, saw how the crew worked together to solve problems, and experienced firsthand the human tendency to share resources freely. They give because they want to give, Lux realized, watching a human engineer share her lunch with an alien visitor. Not because they expect something in return, but because they believe it's the right thing to do. The revelation was so profound that Lux immediately transmitted a new message throughout collective space, correcting the earlier warnings about human behavior. But the damage had already been done, and most alien species remained skeptical of reports that the terrifying predators were actually friendly neighbors. The solution came from an unexpected source. Young Nim, who had become fluent in basic human languages during her stay, volunteered to serve as a cultural ambassador. She recorded messages explaining human behavior from an alien child's perspective, describing how humans had cared for her and taught her about their society. They don't hunt with their gifts, Nim explained in her recording. They share because sharing makes them happy. When they smile, they're not showing weapons, they're showing joy. When they offer food, they're showing friendship. I ate their food for many days and nothing bad happened to me. I became stronger and healthier. Her message, transmitted throughout the Galactic Communication Network, carried more weight than any diplomatic statement could have achieved. Other alien children began to question the adult fears about humans, and gradually a few brave alien families agreed to participate in carefully controlled contact scenarios. The first official cultural exchange took place at a neutral space station in the Vega system. Human representatives arrived with gifts of food, art, and music, while alien delegates brought their own cultural artifacts. The meeting was supervised by Nim and several other alien children who had overcome their fear of humans. This is called chocolate, explained 10-year-old Emma Rodriguez, offering a piece of candy to a nervous Mantis Coalition delegate. It's made from plants on our world, and it tastes really good. See? She took a bite herself, demonstrating that the substance was safe. The delegate, encouraged by the child's casual attitude, accepted the chocolate and discovered a complex flavor unlike anything in their experience. The sweetness was pleasant and calming, with no signs of the mind-altering effects their species had expected. Your food is not a weapon, the delegate realized, speaking through the universal translator. It is simply nourishment that brings pleasure. Of course it's not a weapon, Emma replied, looking confused. Why would anyone think food is a weapon? Food is for sharing and enjoying together. As more species participated in the cultural exchange program, the galaxy slowly began to understand that humans were not the terrifying predators they had imagined. The misunderstanding had arisen from fundamental differences in how various species interpreted social behaviors and facial expressions. The collective learned that human smiles were expressions of happiness rather than threat displays. The Mantis Coalition discovered that human forward-facing eyes were simply an evolutionary adaptation for depth perception, not a mark of predatory aggression. The avian hegemony realized that human food sharing was a social bonding behavior, not a method of psychological warfare. Within a year, trade relationships had been re-established throughout the sector. Human merchants found eager customers for their exotic foods and beverages, while alien traders discovered that humans were fascinated by products from other worlds. The cultural exchange program expanded to include scientific collaboration and artistic partnerships. The transformation was perhaps most visible at the new Galactic Cultural Center, established on the former site of Proxima Trade Hub. The facility featured restaurants serving food from dozens of worlds, exhibition halls displaying art from various species, and recreational areas where children of all races played together without fear. It's remarkable how quickly things changed once we started actually talking to each other, Admiral Hayes observed during the center's opening ceremony. All those months of panic and fear, and it turned out we just needed to sit down and share a meal together. Dr. Mitchell, now serving as the head of interspecies child development, watched as human and alien children played together in the center's playground. The sight of species from across the galaxy cooperating and learning from each other represented everything she had hoped to achieve through peaceful contact. Children see the truth more clearly than adults, she reflected, watching Nim teach a group of human children how to change colors like her people did. They don't bring the same fears and prejudices to new situations. They just see other children who want to play and learn. The final resolution came during the first Galactic Friendship Festival, where humans demonstrated their greatest talent, the ability to turn any gathering into a celebration. They brought music, games, and enough food to feed representatives from 50 different species. The festival became an annual tradition, with each species contributing their own cultural elements to the celebration. As the galaxy settled into its new era of cooperation and understanding, the humans continued to do what came naturally to them. They offered help to anyone who needed it, shared their resources freely, and maintained their belief that the universe was a better place when everyone worked together. The terrifying predators who had once caused galactic panic had revealed themselves to be exactly what they had always claimed to be: explorers, helpers, and friends who just wanted to share their snacks with their neighbors among the stars.